If you like leopards as much as I do, you're going to love this video because I'm going to introduce you to all the leopards that currently live in and around the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate, including the dominant male Mafu, who's by far the biggest leopard, and the legendary old one-eyed female Kulua, who's not only extremely opportunistic and very active during the day, but also mother of a new cub. In fact, if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll drive around here in the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate until I see a leopard with my own eyes, and I'll share it in a future episode. Welcome to the Wildlife Estate Diaries, brought to you by Wild Heart Safari Lodge. I've been monitoring the leopards of the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate for over 10 years now, and in that time I've identified 25 different leopards that have used the property. They don't, however, live here permanently. The area, which covers about 600 hectares, is just too small to sustain them all year round. Instead, they come in and out of the estate via temporary holes along the electric fence line. For us humans, this fence is a boundary that we cannot cross, and it keeps us either in or out. For the leopards, it's just a diversion, but if they walk just a little bit further along it, they'll either find another entry point or they'll simply make their own one. The dominant male of the estate is called Mafu. He's particularly good at clearing holes, and you may have seen him remove some stones with his powerful front paws in the previous episode of the Wildlife Estate Diaries. In late October, he did the same thing. First, he carefully rolled away all the stones that were in his way, and then he even tried to bite through the bottom of the wire before squeezing his body through the gap. When he's around, Mafu uses the whole Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. He often enters the property at the culvert near Fish Eagle Dam in the far east, goes past the Rotsvay burrows to check for potential warthog snacks, and then makes his way all the way west along the drainage line, past Kingfisher Dam, sticking to the single track until he gets to the marking tree near Heron Dam, where he typically leaves his scent. He is a beast of a leopard, and he hardly ever shows himself during the day, quickly running away whenever he senses the presence of humans. But thanks to the trail cameras, I have actually gotten some stunning daytime footage of Mafu over the years, showing just how magnificent he really is. On the 7th of February 2025, Mafu showed up in front of Peter's camera at the Rotsvay burrows in 35-degree heat. He's hardly visible here, but he made himself comfortable in the shade in front of a warthog burrow, and with it being just before 11 a.m, I assumed he must have had brunch on the mind. But then, out of the blue, a female showed up and they mated right in front of the camera. The female was Kulua, Mafu's mate, but regrettably, also his own mother. That's right, Kulua gave birth to Mafu and his sister Mila in early 2015, but he soon got kicked out by the then dominant male Houdini, who was succeeded by a male called Mawuzi. When Mawuzi finally disappeared mysteriously in November 2019, Mafu saw his chance and he came back to take over the area that he was born in, and he hasn't left since. Now, like I mentioned in the previous episode, other residents in the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate have confirmed that Kulua actually has a new little cub. Let's assume conception took place on the 7th of February when Kulua and Mafu mated at the Rotsvay burrows, and the typical gestation period for leopards is between 90 and 105 days. This little cub was most likely born around mid-May. But, as she usually does, Kulua keeps it on the property south of the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate, where there's very little human activity. On the 21st of October, Kulua came north onto the estate, stopped, and then started calling the cub. At first I expected the little one to walk into the frame at any moment, but then I realized she had told it to stay put. Mommy's going scent marking. She'll often start at Heron Dam in the far west, where she marks in front of Sharon's camera, and then walk all the way along the single track, leaving a scent on every magic guarri bush she passes, and then, believe it or not, she even crosses right over the small bridges without thinking twice. These are the same bridges that are used by runners, cyclists, dog walkers, and tourists every single day. That's right, if you didn't know, the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate has a number of different Airbnbs, guest houses and lodges that you can come and stay at if you want to explore all these beautiful trails throughout the Greenbelt. And my favorite is Wild Heart Safari Lodge. The main house is located right on the edge of the greenbelt and can accommodate up to 6 guests in 3 spacious, air-conditioned bedrooms, each with an extra-length queen-size bed, quality linen and a private ensuite bathroom. It's perfect for families or small groups of friends looking to self-cater and has a fully equipped open-plan kitchen with a serving hatch connecting it to an outside dining area. There are also comfortable indoor and outdoor lounges, a swimming pool, as well as a fire pit and braai spot under the stars. If you want to learn more about Wild Heart Safari Lodge or make a booking, simply scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the video description. Now, I was obviously extremely excited to get some footage of Kulua crossing this little bridge. And what actually happened on that day, I was running along the single track and I saw some fresh tracks on this side and on the other side. And that's when I brought the camera to monitor the bridge itself. And I always thought that the leopards would get to the one side and then cross through the drainage around it or take a completely different route altogether. But I've now since learned that Mafu crosses here as well. Another thing that I've been dreaming of capturing is footage of Kulua's cub. And that finally happened on the 9th of November when I was downloading Peter's camera at Cooper's Pond. A couple of days ago I came here to Cooper's Pond to move the trail camera because it was drying up very, very quickly. And then I noticed that there were some leopard tracks right in front of the camera. Let me quickly show you. See, here's the camera, there's the pond. It's completely dry now. But if you look down here, there is a leopard track. But it's pretty small. If you ask me, it's too small for a big adult female. So the question is, did Kulua come past here with the cub? Let's download and check. Okay, so this is the moment of truth. Oh, come on! Leopard cub drinking in front of the camera. Oh, check this. To show you this, look at this. That is a leopard cub drinking in front of the camera. Wow! That's on the 31st of October, 7:30 on Peter's camera. That is the first proper footage of Kulua's cub. It's alive, it's healthy, and it's beautiful. In fact, once I had downloaded the other trail cameras, I realized that both the cub and Kulua had walked right in front of Karina's camera 2 days before the little one had drunk at Cooper's Pond. Like I said before, to us, this fence looks impenetrable, but Kulua knows exactly where and how to get through. On the 3rd of November, just down the road in front of Karen's camera, I captured the pair of them again, this time coming into the estate. And just like before, Kulua let the cub come through first. For more than 3 weeks after that though, I only ever captured footage of Kulua on her own. There was no sign of the cub. I must admit it was a little bit worrying, but I've also learned over the years that she in particular hides her cubs extremely well. At 18 minutes past 10 on the 28th of November, I could finally relax when Kulua and her cub walked into view again in front of Karen's camera. It would seem that they are still spending the majority of their time south of the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. I had a close look and to me it looks like it might be a little girl, which would be absolutely amazing considering the fact that Kulua probably won't live for much longer. She's just so old. And I just think it would be incredible if her own daughter can take over her territory. Now, another spot that Kulua regularly uses is the Rotsvee burrows, which is a series of holes in the ground that's being occupied by warthogs and porcupines. Now, you might remember from the previous episode that I said I took away all the cameras that were here to monitor other areas in the estate, simply because there wasn't a huge amount of action here. But then a little while ago, I took a run past here and I saw a very pregnant warthog going into one of these holes. And that's when I decided to bring Paul and Sheena's camera here to monitor what happens. Late in October, the holes were being cleared out by a large warthog boar, and 5 days later, I captured footage of the first tiny little piglet born this season. It didn't take long for other warthog mothers to join, and by the 19th of November, there were 10 little piglets running around the Rotsvee burrows.
I can just watch them play for hours. Kulua, who specializes in hunting piglets this time of the year, has already shown up a few times, but I'm yet to capture her making a kill this summer. Another adult female leopard that uses this eastern part of the estate and that I've only ever captured around the Rotsvay burrows is Dzaha. She's also a relatively old female, but she's a lot smaller than Kulua. As you may have seen in season 1 of the Wildlife Estate Diaries, she too has perfected the art of hunting warthog piglets in the burrow systems, and I expect to capture more footage of her here in the coming months. Dzaha's previous litter of cubs consisted of 2 boys, Tindleve and Vuuxika, but I haven't seen the former in a very long time. Vuuxika, however, has spent a lot of time coming in and out of the estate along the southern boundary fence. Born in late 2023, Vuuxika is approximately 2 years old and already substantially larger than his mother Dzaha. He is, however, still much smaller than Mafu. Most of the footage I've captured of him this year has either been in front of Karina's camera just south of Hammerkop Dam or a little bit further east where Dia's camera monitors a small dip in the road. A very interesting thing happened here on the 12th of October. Just after midnight, a massive spotted hyena started digging on the southern side of the fence. Periodically, she would be joined by another spotted hyena, and she even got interrupted by a zebra at some stage. Her persistence, however, never wavered, as she kept on digging and digging and digging. Even when the hole seemed big enough for her to easily crawl through, she kept on digging. Every now and again she would pause as if to consider the dimensions of the hole she has created, only to start digging again. What was clear though is that she wanted to get into the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. Nearly an hour after she had started, another younger hyena joined again and started helping with the digging, but neither of them went through the hole. It would take another hour before a third, also relatively small hyena mustered up the courage to crawl through the hole. For what, you might wonder? Well, it seems like there must have been a kill nearby, and the leopard that made it was Mafu. He came back shortly before sunrise, perhaps to see whether or not the hyenas had left any scraps around. And later that same morning, he left the estate again through the same hole.
Mafu must have made a kill in this area and then dragged it into this dense thicket behind the trail camera. And for some reason, the spotted hyenas are just a lot more scared to come through the electric fence than the leopards are. But believe me, it is active, because the other day I got some footage of a warthog getting shot here. Now, Kulua also uses this spot, and I'm always amazed with how many different leopards use this corridor specifically to come in and out of the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. By the way, guys, if you don't know by now, I've become a brand ambassador for African apparel, which includes all the t-shirts that you see me wearing in the Wildlife Estate Diaries. So if you want to get a 10% discount on everything in their online store, simply scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the video description. Shipping is worldwide, and it's a great way to support the Safari Expert YouTube channel. Right, I've introduced you to Mafu, Vuuxika, Dzaha, Kulua and her cub, but there's another female that I started seeing on the trail cameras in March this year, and I named her Tindleve.
At that stage she was already an adult, but still much smaller than both Kulua and Dzaha. The name Tindleve means ears in the local Tsonga language, referring to what, at least to me, looks like a massive pair of ears. As far as I'm aware, she hasn't ventured deep into the estate, but I'm interested to see whether that changes when Kulua passes away.
Remember, if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll make a video where I drive around in the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate until I see a leopard with my own eyes. So if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, leave a comment down below, and consider subscribing as well if you want to see what happens to Kulua and her cub. Now, another way to support the Safari Expert YouTube channel is to become a Patreon member, and you can do that by scanning the QR code on the screen or following the link in the video description. And my patrons are basically nature-loving people from all over the world that make small monthly donations in return for some rewards like early access to my videos, behind-the-scenes footage, and mentions in the videos for specific tiers. Now, I always make time to interact with my patrons, and some of them have even come out here to see their trail cameras in the Hoedspruit Wildlife Estate. And that includes Peter Maas, who visited in July, and Paul and Sheena, who visited in October.
Hi everybody, this is Paul and Sheena, and this is their camera. Thanks so much for joining.
A special shout out to another patron of mine, Diane Robenheimer, who recently sponsored a 7th trail camera, which I've put out here at the Drongo Troughs, at least for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.